And we are going live. So I like to need to give a minute or so for people to log in, because once we go live, then everybody gets the chance to join, and it can take a minute. So before we do the big intro, which is coming up now, Steve Grubbs, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Bob.
Oh, my pleasure, man. So for those of you that don't know Steve runs about 700 businesses. And he's one of the people that I follow, by the way, on LinkedIn. So he's a big influencer for me in the VR space, both in entertainment, in education, and in esports. So Steve, why don't you give us a quick, background and touch on those three businesses, unless there's more that have happened since the last time we talked, and we can go into those too.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a recovering politician. When I first started in life at age 24, 25, I got elected to the legislature. I served my time. I spent 4 years as chairman of the House Education Committee and passed the first major technology bill. And it was interesting because we did some good things with that money that we spent. We got schools connected to the internet, but by and large, I came out of my time in politics thinking you can do some good in the legislature, but probably as an entrepreneur, you can do a lot more good. And so, you see a lot of entrepreneurs leaning that way these days, people like Elon Musk and others. So I started a handful of companies. The most relevant today, VictoryXR, formerly Victory VR, but we create augmented reality and virtual reality content for the classroom. And then our other company is called Chalk Bites, and it has a location-based entertainment facility, what we call a training and gaming facility called Paradigm. And Paradigm's business model is pretty simple. We believe that a facility, a modern technology facility, can be used for corporate training during the day, and then in evenings, it can be used as an entertainment and gaming space. And awesome. So, yeah, the goal is to, unlike a restaurant, which frequently will struggle to stay busy throughout the day, and we struggle as well, but the plan is not to struggle, to basically start at 8 a.m. and go until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, utilizing the space for productive revenue. And we're not there yet, but every month we get a little closer, except last month.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just talk about that first. So you're in Davenport, Iowa, which is, kind of middle America, right?
Yeah. Middle America we get.
And I, there's a lot of questions from people. How big is Davenport population wise?
So our community, the Quad Cities, is 400,000. And right. For example, John Deere is based here.
Yeah. All right. So I get a lot of people ask me, will VR work in my town? And sometimes those towns are 50,000 people, and sometimes they're 500,000 people. And so, but you guys are running a pretty sizable operation in one of the, if you look at the top 100 markets, Davenport's probably towards the bottom of that scale. It's what?
160.
160. Okay, cool. So what's the scale of the business? Like, how big are they? What's your capacity? And how are you finding it working in a small city?
Yeah. So our facility is 6,500 square feet. We have essentially 4 spaces. We have 17 virtual reality stalls that are divided into single stalls and doubles. We find the doubles really are the best revenue driver. And then we have a 600 square foot free roam arena that we use for some free roam and multiplayer activities, and that'll just get bigger and better as time goes by. Then we have a 100-seat arena for esports in the evening and weekends, and then during the day for corporate training. And then we have a seated cafe area. And this is used for a number of different things: receptions, a place for people to buy drinks and food and wait, for moms or dads to wait while their kids are playing. And we also use it for our game nights. And so, the interesting thing, and you and I have had this conversation, Bob, but for a facility like ours, we can't survive just on drop-ins playing VR. And so what we are in the process of doing is creating community nights. So Tuesday night is our tabletop RPG night. And probably most of your viewers know what that is, but I had to have my guys explain, it's your Dungeons and Dragons night. So that launches June 27th. Wednesday is our church night. And so we are bringing in Herod's Temple, the VR experience. So we'll start people out in the esports arena. We'll show them a 20-minute film about Herod's Temple, and then they'll actually get to go into Herod's Temple. Thursday night is Magic the card game night.
Yep.
And so again, it's creating community and creating a gathering. Friday night is fight night. So Smash, Tekken, all the fighting games. So they come in and they play. And Saturday during the day is every single week, without fail, is an esports tournament. These are small local tournaments for the most part. We have a big tournament that we're holding at a casino in late July. But so Saturday is the esports tournament, again, driving traffic. And then this summer, Saturday nights, we'll be starting a DJ night. And it all works in this Venn diagram that we have that has, manga and anime and Dungeons and Dragons and esports and VR. And the center of that Venn diagram is Paradigm. So we're working to build community and working to get all of those off the ground to drive enough traffic to be profitable.
Wow. So, oh my God, there's so much there I want to unpack. And I'm gonna try to catch it all, and I want to go back to the beginning. So the first thing we talked about is the size and the number of booths, and you said the double booths are the best revenue driver. And so talk to me about what are they, and what do you do there differently than the single booths, and why are they a better revenue driver?
Well, they're a better revenue driver because we find people want to come in groups, 3, 4, 5, and hang out together. So in a single stall, there's not enough room for people to hang out. It's basically one person, a solo, solitary experience. With the double stalls, you have 2 headsets, 2 computers in there. People are sitting on our little chairs outside, and they're talking and they're hanging out and they're switching back and forth playing. So it gets utilized more, and we can, we charge more per hour in slightly less space than you would for 2 individual stalls.
And what type of experiences do you offer? The same games? Can 2 people play 2 different games, or are they all most 2-player games?
No, they frequently play 2 different games, but it's up to them. They can hop into a multiplayer game if they want. We sort of give them their choice, but frequently, Beat Saber still owns the world. And a lot of times people just want to get into Beat Saber and go, and they'll switch off. They'll do one song, then somebody else hops up, does a song, and they'll just go back and forth and see who can get the best scores.
So it's just a function of creating a social environment for them from a physical sense, so they can stay together with the group versus isolating them in different phone booths. Yeah,
that's exactly. What we found was not a lot of people just sort of stumble in by themselves to play VR. They're still looking for social rather than, I just have to, hop in and play VR.
Yeah. And so Joe's asking, size-wise, it's 6,500 square feet is big and small. It's, and I keep telling people you have to go big in order to get the group business. Like I don't know anybody operating a small arcade being like a couple of thousand square feet that's actually making money. I think at best they're buying themselves a low-wage job as an entrepreneur. And so, the people that I know that I talk actually feel like they're having some success are in this 5, 6, 7, 8,000 square foot range. But you're doing a lot in that space. And I think that this is the thing that people have a hard time getting their head around is, how would I utilize 7,000 square feet? Do I just build like 50 booths? And the answer is no. And so one of the questions is, how big is the dining area that you do? And what else do you do in that space? Like, what kind of food do you serve? What kind of drink? How big is it? How do you staff it? Talk about that, because I think Randy White a couple of weeks ago talked about you have to have food and beverage in this business. It's now becoming table stakes.
Yeah, I'm going to start by answering your question, really just talking about being an entrepreneur. The way I view it, this is a new space. Esports, VR, all of these things are new. I mean, they're not new, but trying to make it as a business is new. And so you have to constantly be testing and trying new things and ready to pivot. You don't want to marry yourself to any one path. And so the way we viewed it, especially in what we consider ourselves a mid-market, not a large market, not real small. And so we think that we have to build the Buffalo Wild Wings for people who don't like sports, for this entire new generation of people who like things. They're not waiting to watch the NBA finals. What they'd rather see is the League of Legends finals. And so we originally did not get a liquor license when we opened. We wanted to see if we could make it without an alcohol license. And we've come to conclude that what happens is we have people during the day, but we've not been successful at building up a good night hangout space. And so we've applied for what in Iowa was known as a Class B liquor license, which allows us to sell beer in cans and other drinks in cans. So we're going to start there. Our space, our cafeteria space, is about 350 square feet. So it's not real big, but it's big enough to have our tabletop games and for people to hang out. And it's in an old warehouse. So we keep testing what brings people in, what games work. So for example, like one of our most recent iterations is this Saturday, our esports tournament is an Apex/Fortnite tournament. And I asked my guys, I said, how does that work? They said, no big deal. We just run them side by side, and we'll have an Apex winner and we'll have a Fortnite winner.
Interesting. And so what led you to believe that you need to bring in a liquor license? Like, what were some of the indicators that you saw that said, all right, this is going to change things for me?
Yeah, we want our space to, if we want to be the Buffalo Wild Wings of this other space, we want it to be a place where people come hang out and they talk, and when they're done playing or they are done watching, and it becomes a gathering place. So for all the teens and 20-somethings and 30-somethings who love anime or manga or magic, we want them to say, okay, if I want to go find people who are like me, that like the same things as me, this is a place. So for example, when I go to watch I love college football. When I go to watch a college football game, there's 3 or 4 places we'll go, Buffalo Wild Wings being on a short list. And we think, where are people going to go and do that? So we think that socially, people want to gather in places where people are engaged in other similar social activities. And that's the model we're pursuing.
And what I love about this is I teach my clients about going narrow, right? And I'm a marketing guy by trade, right? And I could be a marketing consultant to the world and be one of a million marketing consultants, or I can be the location-based VR guy and be one, right? And what happens is if you're in that space and you want to launch a product, you say, who should we call? You call Bob Cooney, right? And my phone rings off the hook. And so what I love about this, and I try to eat my own dog food, is going narrow allows you to be known for something. And the way you're doing it, and there's lots of ways to segment businesses, and what you're doing is you're segmenting by day. On this day we're this, on this day we're this, on this day we're this. And so those people know they can come to your place on that day and be with people who have a common. And the sports analogy is great, by the way, because like I'm a Broncos fan. If I'm going to go watch a football game, I'm going to go look for a Bronco bar, or if I'm going to watch a soccer game, I'm going to go look for a Tottenham Hotspur bar. And so what you're doing is you're creating these different bars with different themes on different nights to find little niche audiences. And I think it's brilliant and amazing stuff.
Yeah, and we're certainly not profitable yet. It's a business model in progress, and it's my 4th company, and I know that you have to financially have some runway to be able to get through the testing, the pivoting time. And so that's not always easy, but our next big, we are launching a crowdfunding campaign. So as you may know, formerly the federal government had a law that made it illegal for anybody but rich people to invest in startups. So the federal government, in trying to protect poor people and middle income people, said you cannot invest in Uber or Google or Facebook or any of these because you're not accredited. So in 2011, they passed a law that said, okay, under the guidance of the SEC, you can have startup crowdfunding. And so we are working with a company in Los Angeles, and we are probably in July launching a startup raise for this company to build corporate training modules. And we'll deploy those modules not just in our location, but we'll also be able to deploy them in LBEs across the United States, and then also at, say, for example, a police station or at a restaurant or other places that people might use them. So it gives the company, our goal is to break even in the entertainment and gaming space in the evenings and on weekends, and then to build profits with the frosting on the cake during the day of corporate training.
And that's brilliant. And this is something that I talk all the time about, is you have to have multiple revenue streams in this business. And if you can build multiple revenue streams, and so obviously there's the casual game playing is one pillar of the business. And then I think group sales is another. And then training is the third now that you're talking about. And before I get to training, I want to talk about group sales, because I know that that's the other thing, that scale, size gives you the ability to do bigger groups. So what's your group business like? How do you get it? And how big a part of your business is it?
Well, first, thank you, Bob. When I attended the event that you asked me to speak at, you had a speaker there who talked about group sales.
Yep.
And so I came home and I hired a group salesperson.
Cheryl Bindleglass. Oh, awesome. She'll be thrilled to know.
Yeah. I looked at, see if I could find somebody who's trained by one of the hotels, and I didn't, but I found another good person. But before we were doing group sales, simply driving them to our website, and then they were talking to the folks who ran our facility. And we were doing fine, but we weren't doing nearly as well as we should be doing. So now what we were getting was, and we still get these, we do a fair number of birthday parties, because that's sort of like the low-hanging fruit. And then we are now getting basically corporate events that span several different types. So you have just corporate parties that people want to have. Second, we've had some corporate training where they use our facility for some training, and then group trust building. And so they come in and they'll work together on a particular VR game after they have some discussion in the arena. So those are the three things that we've got. We believe that, for example, we will have a law enforcement product that law enforcement agencies in the region can send people for a certain amount per day to be trained. And we're also putting together a product for electrical contractors. So that's where our group person is going. And she's just getting off the ground because we just got her launched this month. But knock on wood, awesome. We expect that to be successful.
And when you talk about like trust building and stuff, have you created programs that you like a curriculum for these groups, or where you sell them? I have this program, because that's what I do. Like I have a go-to-market strategy program and a launch program and a sales coaching program. And I find people need to buy programs or products, like giving them too many options and they don't know what to do with it. What have you done there? So
the answer is we're in the middle of that process. We have, before these companies would come to us and say, hey, what do you have? And so we'd sort of walk through some various options. And we made the sale, but it became clear that, as you say, people want to buy a program. They walk in and here they're going to get X, Y, and Z. And so now with this new person that came on this month, we are going through that process of creating one-pagers on what X, Y, and Z look like, which we'd already done with birthdays. And now we need to do that for team. I said trust building. I should have said team building.
Team building, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So, and then we were going to talk about, so training. So talk about the training module, because I've just recently been seeing a bunch of videos about like police training and tactical training in these free roam spaces. And there are some companies that have built amazing simulator software specifically for police training, let's say. And every city has a police force that's underfunded and under-resourced. And so what's that market look like to you, and how are you going to approach it? And then how are you going to enable it for other arcades for them to leverage? Because I don't know that it's something everybody can just do, right? You probably have to have some skill and expertise.
Yeah, we've hired a consulting firm to help us put together the curriculum. And we will use a combination of AR, VR, and probably even some 2D videos to put together a training program. So, for example, de-escalation. This is a lot of states are passing laws that police have to have de-escalation training, so that ideally you de-escalate before you shoot.
Yeah,
there've always been a lot of shoot scenarios, right? And that's a big space. But what we really do different, if you might have seen our frog dissection simulation from our VictoryXR company. And what we really believe is that humans are still the best teachers. And so just because you put somebody in a simulation doesn't mean that they will be taught. And so we actually take humans that are teachers, we turn them into holograms, we insert them into the virtual reality experience, and then from there, they go from being taught in VR to actually going through the simulation and being scored once they get into the simulation round.
Yeah. And so, and is this something like, I know you have a free roam space you talked about, and another thing, so you said it's, I think, 600 square feet. Are you using Lighthouse and backpacks? Is that what you do there, or what are you doing in the free roam space?
Yeah. Yes. We use the HPZ backpacks.
Yep.
Dan Schneider of HP sold those to me, and they work well. And then we also use, just Lighthouse. We don't use any particular program. We looked at, I spent a lot of time studying like the free roam arena. And they're like $600,000, $1 million. And I'm thinking, I did the math on how many people I would have to run through, and there was just no way we were.
No way in a market your size. Yeah, no way.
And so you got to be, 2-Bit Circus or somebody like that to be more successful there. So we were patient in waiting for the multiplayer free roam products to come out. We also invested in Vive Pro, which is built for that. So now it's a good product. We've been using LA Dead Zone, and those guys did a nice job. So that's a good place for us to start, and we'll continue. What I really want to do is to get off the ground an art program where students or people can come in and be artists. And so that'll take a little bit of time, but we hope to figure that out as well.
Yeah, cool. And you said at LA Dead Zone, is that the game you primarily run within your free roam space?
Primarily, yes.
And what do you charge for that? And how long is it?
We are charging $10 per person, and it's so it's not that much. It's $40 for 4, and they'll run through it in about 20 minutes. So
okay, right.
Value
priced.
It's definitely value priced. Our goal is to, one of the things that I know as a businessman is that I'm not afraid to raise prices once demand increases. But in our market, we need to have people try it initially and sort of get the concept that, this is a really cool thing, and tell their friends. And so once, we hope to, within a few months, raise it $15 per person, and then see where we go from there.
And one of the things you have to do, and you've created like this business with different zones where people can stay longer. What are you finding as far as length of stay goes, and how are people moving from one area of the business to another, and how are you monetizing that? Yeah,
so that's an issue we spend a lot of time trying to figure out. So the great thing about our esports tournaments is people are generally coming and hanging out all day. We're getting them for 8 hours. So, in the internet business, I have an e-commerce company. You measure all the time through Google Analytics, what kind of time you're getting from a visitor on your site, time, your TOS, time on site, big stat that you measure. With our LBE, it's an issue of how long can you get people to stay? And that gets back to our Class B liquor license as well. In the VR side, people come in for an hour. And it's mostly young people or parents with kids. On the esports side, it's hours, and then we have to convert the esport participants into VR. So what we have created there is a $25 all-you-can-eat pass, all-you-can-play pass. And so they'll go out and between rounds, they'll go out and play some VR and then go back and compete and then go back and play a little VR. So it's a way for us to upsell the VR and get more revenue in the door. One other interesting thing that we've done, I forgot to mention, is we created a little cinema room. And so we have 3 Windows mixed reality headsets that are dedicated to VR cinema. So we're trying to expand the age from 14 to 28 to bring in 28 to 55 in that range. And so we're showing 2 films, Everest and The Man Behind Notre Dame. We do a double feature. The 2 combined are only like 22 minutes. So we do a double feature for $10, and then they can also get popcorn while they're there.
Yeah, interesting. And what do you find the demographic appeal? Who's doing that? How popular is it, and how do you charge for it, or is it just only part of the all-in-one thing?
Well, so we just launched it after we reopened from the flood, which was only last Friday. So I don't really have enough data to answer very well, but it is our newest initiative that we're getting off the ground. I think it's going to take some time, but we will, in the downtown area that we're in, there are a lot of restaurants. So we're going to put out a promotion that combines, restaurant and a movie. I'm not sure if they should see the movie before they eat or after. For the most part, 360 films don't make people very sick. So
yeah. Okay, cool. So Tim's asking about why you're using LA Dead Zone as opposed to Arizona Sunshine, and I have my guess, but I'd love to know your thinking as far as in the free roam space.
Well, so we use a lot of Arizona Sunshine, but we haven't hooked up Arizona Sunshine yet in the free roam space. And I guess, excuse my ignorance, but it works well as a multiplayer.
They actually have an arcade edition that's in the free roam space. Licensing cost is probably higher than what you're doing with LA Dead Zone, but you can do 4 players in up to 1,000 square feet with backpacks and Vive. It's worth checking out. It's a really good experience, and it's about 25 minutes.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll look into it. Obviously, Arizona Sunshine's one of the more popular in our single and double stalls. So maybe we ought to be looking in the free roam arena as well.
Yeah, cool. Are you doing anything in the mixed reality area as far as like social sharing and green screens or depth sensing cameras, like with Live or Mixcast or anything like that?
Yeah, that's on our roadmap. We need to do that. We just installed last weekend a monitor that faces outside to the street for people walking by. So our goal is to be able to do a live feed to that monitor. So when people are walking by, they say, "What the hell is going on in there?" And so that's the type. It's on the roadmap. We haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Richie's Plank social experience, where you have a Richie's Plank with integrated with Mixcast from Blueprint Reality, and people do it and they cheer on their friends, and all of that gets shared on social, where people can then post the videos to LinkedIn or to Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. And so
what's the cost of that, Bob?
I think you can get into that for, like, depending on how you want to theme it. You could certainly get into it for $5,000. Like, and because really all you need is, for the Mixcast stuff, you need 2 cameras and a NUC. And then, if you want to do a green screen, you can do a green screen behind it to get a better quality, depending on where you put it. And then, if I were to do it, I would theme it out a little bit. I'd probably go spend another $1,000 or $2 on making it kind of look like an office where you're going in or something. But yeah, I think you can do it inexpensively, and I think it becomes a bit of a. And the thing I love about it is it's a dedicated booth. Everybody's going to want to do it, and it's a really inexpensive on ramp. You could charge $5, right, just to walk in and try it. And now all of a sudden you get that great on ramp into the VR experience, and it's amazing. And it's social, and so I know they're doing that at VR World, and I've been convincing arcades around the world. Pixeli, I've been trying to get Jan to do that in Finland. I really, it's just a great, easy, inexpensive on ramp for people.
I'm going to move that to the front of our roadmap. It's one of those things that I've had on the list, and sometimes you just have to prioritize, and that's a great idea.
Yeah, awesome, thanks. So and keep me posted. Let me know how it goes. So Jorge or George is asking about prop tracking, and I'm assuming you're with Lighthouse. Are you doing any props or any, things like that in the free roam space? I wouldn't imagine you are.
We don't. The closest thing we have to a prop is in our free roam space. Our Vive hand controllers are guns. It connects right into them. And so that's But here's the fun thing. We're producing some really cool AR content. So we're rolling out with Best Buy the augmented reality dinosaur lessons. And so what I want to do is in our free roam space also let people come in and do a dinosaur exhibition. Right now we'll do it on phones, but by the end of the year we'll use those new Qualcomm AR glasses, or I know Apple's going to roll out some AR glasses, but
check out the RealSense too from not is it RealSense? It's RealMax, the RealMax 100. Yeah, I'll introduce you to Nigel. It's a great product, really wide field of view, swappable head batteries, perfect for LVE. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we think that what we created are like these doormats with dinosaurs on them, and of course they pop up and it looks so real. I don't know if you, on my LinkedIn, I uploaded a video that we did with it before we rolled it out, and it's just so freaking cool.
Yeah, one of the things about AR, and Doug Trumbull talked about this at an event a couple of years ago, which I didn't actually know, but when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, is that augmented reality actually is more believable than virtual reality, because what happens is, like, if I see a dinosaur walking through my living room, I know the living room's real. And so my brain says, well, the living room's real, therefore the dinosaur is real. So the suspension of disbelief happens instantly with AR. And so that's a really interesting dynamic that I think we can use in entertainment to give people better thrills.
Well, and the other thing is you can use space that's otherwise unused. So for example, we're creating for schools, creating an AR history tour. So like for Black History Month, you hold your phone up and here's Harriet Tubman, and she's standing in your school hallway, and then you head on and you learn about Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation, and you go all the way up through Martin Luther King, and these characters are standing in your hallway teaching you about these various moments in both Black history and the Civil Rights Movement and that type of thing. And you can do that for anything. Yeah. We're also looking at doing sculptures, so you can see the world's greatest sculptures in an LBE. So it's a big development roadmap, but it's green space. There's so much potential right now.
So let's talk about education. So I know you're doing a lot in that space, and you talked about the frog dissection app, which I think just won an award from Vive. So talk about that, because I think that was the start, right?
Yeah, so that wasn't our start. Was we created 48 units of science curriculum from middle school through high school, all aligned to the NGSS. We hired a national curriculum specialist and the national runner-up teacher of the year. We created some really strong content. Microsoft licensed that content so they can provide it to people using Windows Mixed Reality in school. But sort of like our signature piece, which was really big for us, was Viveport at their Viveport Awards. They nominate 8 studios around the world for 4 awards. We were the only American studio that was nominated. And there were 2 that were nominated in the education class, and then we won Best Education Product in the World with our frog dissection simulation, which I know seems odd, but it's still pretty cool. So we have this nice little, our own version of the Academy Award sitting in our office, and the developers who I convinced to move to Iowa from around the United States and around the world, feel pretty good about what they're doing here.
That's amazing. And so, and what's the, like, because you told me about the whole frog dissection thing. It's apparently, like, I've been out of school for a little while, right? So apparently it's become somewhat controversial, and places are banning it, right?
Well, so some countries in Europe are banning it. In the United States, 60% of American students are now in states where there's a mandatory option to opt out, and the schools must provide a viable alternative. And the viable alternatives are okay, but nothing's as good as what we're providing. So we think that as time goes by, unless you're going into a life science field to be a medical doctor or whatever, more students will opt for the virtual reality option. So Carolina Biological, who's the largest supplier of animal specimens for dissection, they came in and they're our partner in this process. We use their curriculum. And so they now sell both the real deal and the VR version.
Interesting. So I'm hearing two examples of amazing distribution deals, right? So one is Microsoft, distributing your educational curriculum content, and another one is, the company that sells all the frogs, distributing your frog dissection experience in VR. How do you land those distribution deals? Because that's something a lot of people in VR are struggling with, is how to get distribution.
Yeah. So my big secret is not much of a secret at all. And there's nobody better at it than you. I have found that LinkedIn, used properly, is the best way to get up. How many times have I tried to call through, you call the front desk, may I get an appointment with so-and-so? And, the odds of that happening are like 1 in a million. But with LinkedIn, if you are putting interesting content, and I'll give just one tip. What I would say are the dumb people versus the smart people. When you're trying to connect with people who are difficult to connect with on LinkedIn, the dumb people just go to their page and click connect. The smart people actually write a little note, and they explain why the relationship would be of value
to them. What's in it for you?
Exactly. So it is. I give our Microsoft deal, which funded, a significant portion of this spring financially for our company. I give that credit to the relationships I built with the Microsoft folks on LinkedIn. Without it wouldn't have happened. We also have an Oxford University deal with creating virtual reality language for China, teaching Mandarin speakers how to speak English. And these relationships have probably 60% come through LinkedIn and being patient and, tagging people and putting up content that matters and explaining to people why we could be of interest to them, and then just waiting. And again, it's the rule of, 6 to 7 times. You got to keep touching people and not harassing them, but keep going at them and showing them interesting things you're doing.
Yeah. And obviously the frog dissection guys, like, that's an obvious market. Like, they know the market, they know the product, right? I mean, that's the thing I think a lot of people get wrong, is they just think anybody that's interested in distributing, they sign up a deal. But you got to really be targeted and get on a distributor that knows your market intimately, and understands how your product fits to that market. And did you on either of those, did you struggle with, or was it immediately like, these guys get it?
So here's the big advantage people in our space have. There's 100,000 mainline companies out there, established companies that are trying to figure out how to be relevant in this new digital XR age. And they read about it, they hear about it, and in a lot of cases, they've actually gone out and gotten a quote. Well, what's it going to cost to build this? And the quotes always come back very large. For us, we are looking for more than just, we don't want to just say, okay, we're going to build it for you and walk away. What we want in our business model is an ongoing relationship and a recurring revenue model. So what we say is, look, if you'll put in a little bit of money, we'll build this, but we'll jointly sell it, and we'll both benefit financially from the sale in perpetuity. And so it's a win-win for them. The cost to dip their toe in the water is substantially less than if they were going to buy it outright. And their downside is limited, but their upside is very large. And so you have to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, and interesting. In my experience, I always tell my clients that you can't just abdicate the sales to the distributor. And you said we'll both sell it, and I want to key in on that. And how important have you found that so far as kind of keeping a hand on the sales throttle?
So it's very important, because first of all, you don't want to. It's very easy for a product you create to go into the sales channel of another company and then just get dropped, because in the early days, people are going to buy a lot of our VR, AR products. So we have to keep promoting it. And then there are other challenges. You have to sort of think strategically about all of these challenges. So, schools started out buying just one Vive or one Rift because it's expensive. You got to have this crazy expensive graphics computer, and they all thought they had the computer. And of course, none of their computers would work for VR. So I had to convince them, okay, go out and buy a $1,400 computer and buy this, $400 to $600 headset, and then you'll be in business. But only one student can use it at a time. So that was a bit of a challenge. Now we're able to, through Oculus Go, and now through our new relationship with Pico, able to sell an entire classroom of headsets plus content for $7,500. Every kid's got one on, and they can all experience, standing on the Great Wall of China, learning about engineering design at the same time. So we are pushing these things. We don't wait for Pico to do it. We don't wait for, Oculus or any other partners to do it. It's us doing it on our own.
Yeah, interesting.
But they also do it as well, and they'll do it more once they see some traction on it.
And that's just it, is I think that oftentimes salespeople take the path of least resistance, and initially there's resistance, and they're not really, they don't really care about the product, right? Because it's not theirs. So they'll push, they'll get resistance, they'll move on to the next path of less resistance. And so I think in the beginning, the owner needs to really push that. And I think that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that the developers have to stay involved in the sales and marketing and the demand generation until the flywheel gets going. So that's really good advice. Thank you.
That's a really great way to put it. The flywheel gets going. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so are you, and what about Quest? So Quest is released recently. They've sold $5 million worth of content, and everybody's excited about them. Like $5 million, that's like the first 10 minutes of CSGO going on sale, 10 seconds maybe. And so what are you thinking about Quest? Are you playing with it? Are you going to use it? Is it a game changer for your business and for location-based and education? What do you think?
We do think it's a game changer. The whole Quest thing is interesting, and there's three things I would say. First of all, it's extremely difficult to get your content onto the Quest store. Some of the best developers in the world have been rejected. We ported our frog dissection to it, and it was not accepted. And so just getting onto the store is very difficult, unlike everybody else who just wants content. So that's number one. But number two, the big thing for us is not really the gaming store. It's the enterprise system that that Zuckerberg announced will be coming out this fall. And so the enterprise platform will likely be the path into schools, and it'll be the path into police departments and other. And it's so much easier just to put on a Quest than to have to set up lighthouses or, tether to a computer. And so we do believe that it's very much a game changer. The Vive Focus, when it all gets integrated into one, could be similar. But this is the future of VR. It's the future of training. It's the future of education. And so we're very excited about being a part of that future. But we will more likely be on the enterprise side than the store side.
Yeah. And so Gail was asking a question. Hi, Gail. Gail's up in the last frontier in Alaska doing VR. And she's asking, are you going to schools? Are they coming to you, or both?
So nothing's easy, but we are constantly marketing to schools. Sometimes we're fortunate in that they come to us, but more often than not, we have a twice weekly email that goes out that goes to 50,000 educators across the U.S. And then we do some marketing on Facebook, and we go to shows. So we are working very hard to sell our content directly to schools, and we have a partnership with HP, so they sell to schools on our behalf.
Joanna.
Yeah, Joanna, we love Joanna and Dan, and so yeah, that's how it works right now, and we also have relationships with some other tech companies like Microsoft, et cetera.
And I think, Gail, I think what she was asking about is like physically, like, do you take the lessons into the schools, and do you have school groups coming into your facility?
So the answer to both of those is yes, but it's really not a major driver because, we don't have a national sales force. Now with the Quest, we're going to be able to ship it in for them to try it and have it shipped back. So that is of value to us as a sales tool. When I travel, and I travel a lot, I'm always checking with our sales team to see, who's in this area and who should I drop into a demo with. And so I do those demos, and our one and only salesperson does as well. But it's just two people covering all the United States. And not many people are coming to Davenport, Iowa. So for the most part, you have to do it at shows.
But what about in the local community? You've got schools there, right? So how are they using your stuff, and how are you interacting with the local school community?
Pretty much everybody in the local school community has our product in their classrooms because, exactly as they can come in and see it here. We can go and show it to them. And so they're all working with it. And it's interesting. Most of them have it in a science classroom or like a STEM lab. That is the greatest adoption. But we've recently sold, Oculus Go is only 12 months old. And so we sold a lot of Oculus Go's in bundles into classrooms. And so we just finally got those deployed here. And it's a slow process because right now most of this is going through grants. So people are filling out grant applications. That takes, 6 months, and they have to place the order. And it's a slow sales process. But one-to-one in the classroom is here. It's here in a big way. And we think that the station-based for like dissection simulation is going to be a big deal. But then also for our virtual field trips and some other activities, the one-to-one is going to also be a big deal.
Yeah, interesting. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about. There's a bunch of questions coming in before we move off of this and move into esports. And so Tim's asking about the partnerships with other LBVR companies in cities that run experience in their community. Like, so I think you're planning on figuring this out and then offering this up, like the training and the education, to other VR arcades so they can either distribute your content or demonstrate your content. Like, I think that sounds like your go-to-market strategy, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right now we're working, it's early days. LBEs have been touching bases with us, and so we are working out deals with them. We're probably going to put everybody onto our subscription platform. And so it's a very affordable way to access our content. So that's number one. Number two, we do believe that there's a lot of opportunity for LBEs to be resellers in their local communities to schools, and we have a reseller agreement that's fairly generous. And so, to the extent that you're an LBE owner and you want to have a summer education session, then you want to sell a one-to-one group of headsets into a school, we can be helpful there as well.
So Gail, reach out to Steve on LinkedIn or however. But she's up in Anchorage, and I think she's been trying to figure out she's met with Bill Tustin and trying to figure out the whole education piece. And one of her questions, which I think is an interesting one because it goes to a mindset of entrepreneurs, is she's asking about, is it challenging being the middleman to sell a package to a school when they could just go buy the headsets themselves? Are you marking up the headset, or are you just passing it through and making money on the software? Or what's your thinking there?
Yeah, so our headsets are just pass through primarily.
Yep.
There's a small upcharge for shipping and that kind of thing, but that mostly pass through. The big opportunity for those that want to be resellers is, look, there are 100,000 school buildings in the United States. So a million plus classrooms. Of those, 100 have our content. So this is a huge green space for people. And if you are the middleman between us and that school, then you get recurring revenue for as long as they are on our subscription platform.
Yeah.
If we get to them first, and that ain't likely, then we will get the subscription. We get 100% of the revenue. So it's a lot better deal. And I would say if anybody has an interest, go to VictoryXR.com and just hit us up on the form that's on there.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that that's in the notes on the replay. And Jorge, you're asking, no, Oculus doesn't give discounts to anybody for volume. You're not going to make money selling hardware in this business. There's no margin in consumer electronics. There's no margin in computers. If you want to build them yourself and mark them up, you could probably do that. But you're talking about, really small, non-meaningful incremental margin. And so you need to figure out, and I would think that in the community, building a VR arcade, it's a community business. If you go back to the 70s and the first arcades, they were community centers. They were places where teenagers would go and hang out, and the arcade owner was a mentor to the kids, or at least in my experience, before it got professionalized and moved into malls and Aladdin's Castle and these big chains taking over. And I really believe that to be successful in the VR arcade business, you have to be a community-based business, which means you need to have tendrils out into all the different places of the community, the police department, the fire department, the school. How do you get your relationships with the schools is offer them something of value, offer them education content, and then the kids will get to know you, and they'll come and they'll play in your place on the weekends, and it'll build your casual business. And so how are you seeing that? Are you seeing that network effect at all within your local community in Davenport? And is the education stuff building awareness for the entertainment stuff and vice versa?
Well, so two things on that. One, what's interesting is we hire a lot of 20-something males, willing to hire females, but mostly we have male applicants since it's gaming. And they're very good at working with the kids and building that community. They're not very good at some of the things that adults do, like cleaning the bathrooms well and that kind of thing. So that's a constant challenge, is just make sure they go through their checklist on those things. But they do a really great job of building community, exactly like you're talking about, especially with the esports piece. So that's number one. Number two, we got hit by a flood, so we were closed down for 4 weeks. We just reopened, so our summer plans are delayed. But we are trying to get launched in July, our summer school session. And in our summer school, kids will be able to come in, go through our NGSS science in VR, and then also they can get time with our guys there learning how to code VR games through Unity and learn some C# and get the basics of coding. So, that creates, again, another source of revenue, but also helps to build that community among families and parents and educators and kids. And if we can get caught back up, we'll get that going in July.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And that's one of the big lessons, is you can't just build a bunch of booths, open the doors, and expect to make money. You got to work the community. You got to work the angles. You got to build the revenue streams, build the different business pillars. And like anything, anything in business, is you got to work it hard. And you're doing a great example of that. So let's talk about esports, because that's the other kind of pillar of your business. And you've done some really interesting things. So you've got 100-seat arena. What does that mean?
So we built this really cool arena that there are no seats. It's just like hangout space, and it's tiered. So there's 4 levels. So you can just come sit, you can hang out, you can lay down, whatever the case is. So we have room for 100 people to sit, and then they're looking down onto where the competitors are competing. So we have room for 16. We have 16 computers set up where they're competing. Not 6. We have 12 computers set up where they're competing in Overwatch or League of Legends or fighting games. And that's how the arena works. And so people come, they just hang out, they're buying food, they're buying drink, they pay a small fee to compete every Saturday. And then on Friday nights, they pay a small fee just to hang out and challenge each other in fighting games. And it's a place that, we get 40 to 50 kids every Friday night just coming in and hanging out and playing against each other.
And what do you charge for that, for entry for that?
So $5 to enter that. And then, the model is, I'd like to get to a point where I charge nothing. And maybe I should get to that point. But the model is then to upsell to VR gaming, and as well to sell food and drink and concessions. But right now we're charging $5.
And so how are you seeing the interaction between the esports and VR? Are you getting that cross-pollination and crossover? And like, do you have a conversion rate? You track this shit, so you probably know, like, what's your conversion rate and what's your per cap revenue on VR for people coming in for esports? Because it's a question, is like, is esports a thing? Where does it fit? Like, how do I monetize it?
Well, and there's a big overlap in those two Venn circles, in that it's the same universe of kids. And I think, our belief is that esports will quickly move into VR over the next 2 to 3 years. So we really measure it by how many esport competitors we can get to buy the all-day pass. And we see about 10 to 20% buying that all-day pass. So, if you get 50 competitors, and you're getting 5 to 10 buying that all-day pass, and we're trying to increase that. But, it's, I see someone saying 100 rigs is a lot of investment. I just we don't have 100 rigs. We just have 100 seats in the arena.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And so what's that? Now, I know you did a thing with a local university too, right? So a lot of universities are creating esports programs. Some are doing scholarships now. You did a deal with a local university to offer internships and to get the kids in. And obviously labor and rent and marketing are the 3 big costs for any facility like this. Talk about what you did there and how's it worked out, and what are the advantages and challenges?
I'll add one more cost. That's your build out cost.
Yeah.
So what we did with St. Ambrose University, they bought the naming rights to our facility, and so it's the St. Ambrose Fighting Bees Arena, St. Ambrose University Fighting Bees Arena. And so they also provide us, as well as others, we have unpaid internships in esports, where kids will come down for 2 to 4 hours on a Saturday and help with the esports tournaments. In return, they get experience running a tournament, and then they can go out into the world and have not only something on their resume, but they can also list us as a reference. And so that's an important piece of, and they have fun. I mean, if you're going to do an internship, you can go like work at the manufacturing facility, or you can go run esports tournaments. So it's a win-win. And for us, if we did not have unpaid interns, I'm not sure that we would be deeper in the hole than we could probably deal with.
Yeah, interesting. Now, there was something I did recently. I went up to VR Studios, and they are promoting their Power Play free roam thing as an esports platform. And the demo that I did, the guy that was the game master was actually a shoutcaster. And for those of you that don't know esports, shoutcaster is kind of the play-by-play guy in esports. That's what they call them. And it changed the experience for me. Like, I did it, like it transcended it into me feeling like I was a freaking athlete. It was amazing. And so how big a part of your esports is shoutcasting, and do you always do it? And for people who aren't doing it, like, how do you learn it and get into it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We call it Twitchcaster, but shoutcaster, exactly. And we have people that come in and try it. We generally have 2 people. We have an entire setup in the arena just for 2 people. You've got your color guy and your play-by-play guy, and those are generally volunteers. I'm not paying them, and they have fun with it. But it's a lot of hours. I mean, it's an all-day tournament. The tournaments generally are going to run 6 to 8 hours long. But we don't seem to lack people who are interested in trying that. And the ones who are better get asked back, and it's a big part of it. Now, I've learned so much, and we've learned so much. There's a lot of hype in esports that isn't necessarily true. There's a lot of money in esports, but it can be very difficult to find. A lot of people watch Twitch, but when we broadcast one of our tournaments, we're going to have 25 to 200, let's say, people that are watching our tournament. So it's not like thousands of people are going to tune in and watch because you've got some pretty good players. Now we're hoping that we've got a big tournament in near the end of July, and we're flying in 5 pros. And so the pros are coming in and they have bigger followings. And so we'll see how well we do with that. But that's a fighting games tournament, Smash, Tekken, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, and in the hype, I know there's a ton of hype around esports, and people are trying to figure out, how do you make money in esports and from a location-based standpoint? And I know you're experimenting, but, just give me your thoughts on where esports fits into the location-based entertainment model, and why would somebody do it, or why should they not do it? Like, what's your view? You've been doing it a while.
Yeah, and we've done some things that worked really well, and we've really done some things that sucked. For the most part, you have to think about a couple of things. One, people who play esports, this is not a demographic with a lot of money. These are mostly teenagers and 20-somethings. And so it's not like they're rolling in and buying, it's not like the airport where they have the perfumes and furs and, jewelry. This is, you're trying to get them to buy a $10 t-shirt that has, something cool on it. So that's the first thing. But for the most part, what it brings to the table is if you have an LBE or any other facility, what you need is traffic. Now, there's some people who are fortunate enough that they don't need more traffic, but most people just need traffic. And traffic, whether they're spending $5 or $50, is of value for a lot of different reasons. One, it leads to social media awareness. 2, they're going to spend something. 3, sometimes they bring along significant others or parents. So that's really what we find is the asset to it. And it's a space that has multi-purpose. We can use it for videos, movies, corporate training. We can use it as our DJ space. So having a little 100-seat space like that can be used in a lot of different ways, and esports is just one of those. And we're the only gig in town for an esports arena.
Yeah, and what are the dimensions of the physical space? How big is it? How high is it? Because I know you got tiers.
Yeah, you know what, Bob? I should know the answer to that, and I don't. But I think it's about it's roughly, the seating area is about 600 square feet as well. I think because it's about the same size as our roaming arena.
All right, and what was your build out cost for this whole thing? Because I think that was a question that came in early. Is like because you've got 6,000 square feet, multiple types of experiences within it. What did it cost to build it? Can you say?
So we spent, this is both on equipment and build out, about $400,000.
Okay.
So not crazy, but not nothing either.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And one of the things I know is you're doing the esports thing on the weekends. A lot of people think that they can drive traffic on the weekends by running competitions and tournaments. And I feel like that's kind of swimming upstream. And I think in business, you have to swim downstream, and you have to play up people's propensity to want to be entertained on the weekends. Getting them to come out on the weekdays is hard, or at weeknights. What are you finding there? And do you have any tricks that you can share if it's working?
Well, yeah, I can say this. So first of all, we've done some things that, like are the first, we're in Iowa, but we're doing a lot of things that are first in the nation. We set up a local rec league in League of Legends. So like Northwest Bank was playing US Bank. And, so we found sponsors for these teams, and they wore the US Bank jersey and that type of thing. That worked okay, but it didn't really bring in a lot of people to watch. And so we have not started a second season on that. We fulfilled our first 2 seasons to our sponsors and didn't move on to a new season. But, this is why we're building community. We know that like Magic the Gathering, Magic the card game, that has a pretty good history of having people who gather on weeknights, as does, tabletop RPG. Yeah. And we know that people go to church on Wednesday nights. So these are the things that that we are working off of to try to build these 3 new communities over the next 3 to 6 months.
I think you're onto something. I think that notion of building community and driving your off-peak hours, because that's how you motivate an audience, right? They've got to get motivated to change their behavior. And if their behavior on a Tuesday night is to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, you got to have something deeper and more meaningful for them to get off the couch. And connecting with like minds and people is a lot more meaningful than money. So there's 4 levels of commitment. Matt Church, who runs Thought Leaders Business School, talks about this. The lowest level of commitment is money. And so discounting your thing to get people to change their behavior to come on the weekdays is actually the lowest thing. The highest level of commitment is identity. And so what you're doing is you're tapping into people's identity to motivate them to change their behavior, because people will identify with that community. And I think it's brilliant. And I think there's deep psychology behind what you're doing. And I think it's going to be really successful.
Well, and I would say this, a lot of people snidely remark, oh, how are you going to get those kids out of their mom's basement to come out and play esports at your place, or whatever the case might be. And, fine, people can be snide as much as they want. But generally speaking, I don't care if you're in gaming or RPG or magic or whatever it is, humans are inherently social creatures. And I do believe that if you create a social space for people, that they will gather there. But it has to be repetitive. You have to stick it out. You can't try it 2-3 times and say, oh, heck, we only had 5 people show up. This sucks. So we believe that you stick to it. And our fighting games Friday night, all these people come and spend their Friday night with us, which is pretty awesome. And it just keeps growing. So we're feeling very positive about that. And we think that if we, in our community, Tuesday nights are the $5 movie night. And that has gotten so big that I don't ever go to the movie on Tuesday nights because there's just too many people there.
Wow.
And so we were able to build, this is the multiplex, right? They got 20 screens and this place is full. So I think by establishing a regular night of something that people enjoy, you can be successful.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So dude, this could go on for hours, as you know, but I'm going to have to end it because I'm already over time. I want to thank you so much, Steve, not only for joining this week, but for all of the information that you share freely with the community, especially via LinkedIn. So guys, if you're not following Steve Grubbs on LinkedIn, you're crazy. And, he shares some of the most amazing. He did a blog post on the 6 things he learned in esports, which has become something that I share with people all the time. So follow him on LinkedIn. Where are you going to be going next? Any speaking engagements? We got you out on the speaking tour now. When are we going to see you next?
So I will be at ISTE, which is the big school technology show at the end of the month. We are in the Microsoft booth, the Best Buy booth, the Acer booth, and the Carolina Biological booth. So you can find us all over there.
How do you spell that for those that don't know?
Yeah, IS is in Sam, T is in Tom, E. Okay, ISTE cool. In Philadelphia. And then after that, I think I have July off, and I'm not sure what's happening after that, but it's a pretty full fall schedule.
Well, I need to get up to Davenport. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we would love to have you. And then the other thing I was going to say is thank you for the Facebook group you created for LBE owners. I know that's probably mostly this group, but that has been so valuable. I share so many things off there with guys on my team.
I really appreciate that. And it's become self-sustaining now. It's been great. It took a while to get it off the ground. And I almost gave up on that about a year ago, to be honest with you. Talk about sticking through it, because it was really hard to get people to engage. And I felt like I was pushing on a string, and I'm like, maybe this isn't right. And I just said, I'm going to keep pushing through it. And we got to a point of critical mass. So if you're not already in the group, I'm sure you are, but you can get ahead and join. The other thing I want to just say is I've recently started blogging on a weekly basis. And so if you're not subscribed to the blog, go ahead and subscribe there. Radical insights, deep thinking. I'm going to pull a lot out of this and might pick your brain a little bit more, Steve, about some of the stuff that you're learning. And I got to get Davenport up on my agenda and get up there this summer before it gets cold. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, don't forget to share this with your friends. and we'll see you next week with somebody, special guest. I don't even know who it is because once again I didn't prepare because it's 5 a.m. But we'll see you. We'll see you in the ether. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Talk to you soon.